Member recognizing the member from Chilliwack North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I want to thank my colleague for speaking so eloquently about our lovely city that we live in. And everything she said, absolutely 100%, and I experienced the same things. And as I'm sitting here listening, I'm reflecting on the purpose of what we're doing here. We're debating an amendment that the NDP made in the first place, the offer during the election, and then took it off the table, and we are now offering the opportunity to bring it back. And I know a lot of you probably feel badly hearing the terrible stories, which are all 100% true. And I think you would probably like to say, yeah, you know what, you're right. We should really vote in favor of this. But unfortunately, this isn't actually debate. This has become a solidarity. We're all going to vote the same way no matter what anybody says, and it really kind of defeats the whole purpose of debate, which makes me sad, because we're all speaking truth here, and no one on the other side is actually really listening. A letter from my great-grandmother to my grandmother surfaced a while ago, and in it she talked about, now I'm going to be, she was one of these women of her time who was working, and she worked for government, and she told my grandmother in the letter that she was going to now have to start paying income tax. This is a brand new thing. Income tax, which had not been paid until after wars started, and they had to pay for the wars. Income was based on trade and tariffs. And imagine that. We didn't have a bajillion taxes, but countries still managed to make it. And they did it by doing the things that businesses do, by improving the economy, as we heard my other colleague talk about today. We give free drugs to addicts, but we can't give BC people a tax break. This is all about winning the vote. But really what we should be doing is making the citizens of BC the winners. Give them a break. I have 3 children. One of them has packed up and moved to Alberta. So I'm a walking, talking statistic. 1/3 of our young people have left. And he's doing well for himself. So it was a good move. But it's a bad move for me because my son, my daughter-in-law, and 3 of my grandchildren are now a flight away. My own mother is a senior citizen living on low income, and she scrapes. And when she needs new hearing aids, she's in trouble. When she needs new glasses, she's in trouble. When she needs to go to the dentist, she's in trouble. This relatively small tax break would mean so much to so many people. And I would urge the 4 members in the House who are listening to me right now to consider the possibility of voting in favor of this amendment that we've put forward. Let's be honest. This is a province where the cost of groceries, rent, gas, and basic necessities have reached levels that many families simply cannot afford. Our beloved province has become a place where you know, we say $200 away from being broke, but, you know, I can speak for people that I know, and it's not even $200 away. They're already in debt. And so their strata fees go up. Their mortgage rates go up. No more piano lessons, no more soccer, because they simply can't afford the fees. So instead, you put everything on credit cards. And now we have a situation where the interest rates on the credit cards is so high that they just can't make it. And so it's sell everything or pack up and become homeless in a lot of situations. And we know it's true. This is reality, a reality confirmed by data, by reports, and by stories that we've heard in this House today. And these are the people, the stories of the people that we were elected to represent. Like my other colleagues, I've listened to their struggles. I've heard their frustrations. The one thing that has become painfully clear is far too many people are working harder than ever and still falling behind. They aren't asking for a handout. They're just asking for a fair shot, a fighting chance to get ahead, a little bit of breathing room, that's all. That's what this amendment is about. And it's about the promise that was made during the campaign. This is not a rebate that you have to apply for. This is not a program that gets shuffled out the door. This is real, predictable relief, year after year, budget after budget. Last year, the Premier made a clear promise to the people of British Columbia, $1,000 annual grocery rebate, and he repeated that promise again and again. So the problem is making promises that you don't keep is nobody believes you anymore. Nobody trusts you anymore. So when you say something, you think, well, you didn't hold out, you didn't come through with the last promise, why should we believe you this time? British Columbians deserve better. Mr. Speaker, I've listened carefully to the government's arguments against this proposal. And they've accused us of wanting to hand tax breaks to billionaires and speculators. He's tried to frame this amendment as some sort of gift to the wealthy. Nothing could be further from the truth. This amendment is about the working poor, the middle class, the people who are doing all the right things, working full-time jobs, raising kids, paying taxes, and they still can't get ahead. Raising the basic personal amount doesn't help billionaires. It helps the grocery clerk, the small business owner, the home care worker, the single mom. It helps the people who are struggling to pay for food, gas, rent. Your sons and your daughters, your mothers and your fathers, your aunts and your uncles. It's the people on the ground, the ones feeling the most squeeze of rising prices, who will benefit the most from this amendment. Mr. Speaker, let's talk about the broader context that makes this amendment not just advisable, but essential. British Columbians are carrying some of the highest consumer debt in the country. That's a fact. In Vancouver, household debt levels are the highest in Canada. People are maxed out. They're using credit cards not to take vacations, which I've already stated, or to buy luxury goods. They're paying the rent and they're keeping the heat on. In 2025 alone, food price inflation is projected to rise between 3% and 5%. For the average family of four, that means up to $800 more just to put food on the table this year, if they're lucky. Add that to rising rents, rising mortgage payments, rising gas prices, rising utility bills, and no wonder so many British Columbians are feeling the squeeze to the breaking point. This is not complicated. When families are struggling to cover the basics, the best thing we can do is to let them keep more of their own money. Not through complex rebate applications, not through slow-moving bureaucratic programs, but directly, predictably, through the tax system. When we talk about affordability, we can't do it with a straight face while we continue to tax people who are living below the poverty line. That's not just bad policy, it is fundamentally unjust. The amendment before us corrects that injustice. It lifts the tax burden off the shoulders of those who can least afford to carry it. And it does so in a way that is transparent, responsible, and fair. The simple truth is this: British Columbia is governed today by one of the most urban-centric administrations in its history. It's not a smear, it's not a political spin, it's a reality that is reflected in where decisions are made, where dollars are allocated, which communities are prioritized or neglected. And if you happen to live outside Metro Vancouver, you feel it. In infrastructure that's crumbling, in hospital ERs that are under-resourced, in classrooms without the basics. You see it in roads that don't get fixed and bridges that never get built. You see it when the provincial budget lands, and once again, your region is barely a footnote. And Mr. Speaker, the frustration is only growing. The people of the Fraser Valley, the Thompson Okanagan, the Kootenays, the North, these aren't second-class citizens. These are taxpayers. They're workers, they're families, and yet too often they are left waiting and watching as more and more resources are funneled into the Lower Mainland with promises that never quite make it east of hope. This amendment raising the basic personal amount does not solve the urban-rural divide, but it does send a message that no matter where you live, the government sees you, that your ability to put food on the table matters, just as someone commuting via SkyTrain. It's a first step in restoring some equity into a system that has become deeply imbalanced. Mr. Speaker, there are people in this province who live in communities where the grocery store is an hour's drive away, where heating bills have doubled, and where job opportunities are increasingly scarce. And those people deserve to keep more of what they earn, period. We are simply asking that the government stop taxing people until they earn at least enough to cover the most basic cost of living. We are asking that the tax code reflect reality, not some idealized version of life in this province, but the real numbers: groceries, rent, gas, childcare, insurance, utilities. The current basic personal amount is $15,705. Imagine trying to live on that. You can't. It's impossible. That figure hasn't kept pace with inflation. It hasn't kept pace with the rising cost of living. It hasn't kept pace with what it actually takes to survive in this province, let alone get ahead. Raising that amount to $22,462, the equivalent of a low-income cutoff, is the least we can do. And in fact, I would argue it should only be the beginning. Mr. Speaker, we have a provincial government that claims to be progressive, that claims to champion affordability, that claims to support working families. But where is that support when families are being taxed below the poverty line? Where is that commitment when real action is proposed and voted down on the basis of partisanship? You cannot stand on a stage and call yourself a defender of affordability while allowing people earning minimum wage to pay provincial tax. You cannot promise relief to struggling families during an election campaign only to shelve those promises the moment the votes are counted. And you cannot tell British Columbians to wait, to trust, to be patient, when what they need is action. At the core of this amendment is something far bigger than dollars and cents. At the core of this amendment is an issue of trust. When governments make promises, people listen. When leaders go out in the community and declare that relief is coming, families plan around it. They adjust their expectations. They adjust their budgets. They might even adjust how they vote. So I would actually go so far as to say it was a total misrepresentation during the campaign. So when those promises are broken, when they vanish into thin air, people don't just feel disappointed, they feel misled.
Member, we've had a pretty wide berth here this afternoon. I would warn you against suggesting anybody is misleading anybody.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment keeps the promise that was made during the election, not through bureaucracy, not through press conferences, but through the tax system, efficiently and permanently. Bless you. If the Premier and his government are serious about helping British Columbians, they should support this amendment. If they meant what they said about affordability, about urgency, about immediate help, this is their chance to prove it. Mr. Speaker, the low cutoff in this province, as I mentioned, is $22,462 for a single individual. This is not an arbitrary number. This is the threshold below which Statistics Canada tell us a person is struggling to meet the minimum standard living. What possible defense can be made for a system that asks the working poor to contribute before they've even covered their rent, their heat, and their groceries? This isn't about billionaires. It's about bus drivers. It's about care aides. It's about construction workers and grocery clerks and hairdressers. And let's be clear, a billionaire in British Columbia doesn't rely on the personal basic amount to avoid taxes. Their accountants have more complicated strategies than that. This amendment isn't about loopholes for the rich. It's about relief for working class. It's about fairness. It's about aligning the tax system with reality. And it's about ensuring that the people who are struggling the most are the ones who get help first. Mr. Speaker, the Premier has said many times that people need help now, that affordability is the priority of this government, and I agree with him wholeheartedly. He is absolutely right. But the difference between this side of the House and that side of the House is that we're actually prepared to follow through, and we're inviting that side of the House to join us with this amendment and to make it a reality. It means lifting the burden off the shoulders of those who are already weighed down by the cost of living. These aren't hypothetical people. These are constituents. These are families who come into our offices asking for help. These are seniors who call us because they can't make their rent. 60 to 70% of the people who come into my constituency office or who call or who email are seniors. They are really struggling. They're not asking for luxury, they're just asking for fairness. If we cannot agree across party lines that taxing people into poverty is wrong, then what are we doing? Because lifting people up does not just help those individuals, it strengthens our economy, it strengthens our communities, and it strengthens our province. Here's the truth. Letting struggling families keep more of what they earn is not just compassionate, it's smart economic policy. And we heard that. We've heard that. When you put $500 back into the pocket of someone living paycheck to paycheck, they don't send that money offshore. They don't hoard it in a savings account. They spend it right here at home in BC on groceries, on rent, on kids' clothes, at the local gas station, at the small businesses that are the backbones of our communities. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to close here, and I would really urge members across the aisle to really think about this, amendment. Put a face in front of you from the food bank, from your constituency office, when it comes to giving them this financial break. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.